Godzilla Kong the New Empire has finally released in theaters to almost universal praise from audiences. As the fifth entry in the MonsterVerse, Legendary ups their game by having more monster scenes than ever before. There's so much action and world building here that you begin to feel like you're a Titan yourself. But there are so many details in this film that you might have missed, and perhaps the most important is in the ending. Whilst on the offset it looks simple enough, there are actually plenty of themes and subtext that help give the film meaning, which is an aspect that a lot of critics seem to have missed. It goes without saying that there's gonna be spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the film yet, what are you doing here? Go away! Otherwise, let's get to it. The film opens with the Hollow Earth, and we're reintroduced to Kong as he explores the uncharted terrain. Since Skull Island, Kong has longed to meet more of his kind and makes it his mission to search the Hollow Earth, dropping whatever he's doing and rushing out at any sign of other Kongs. But initially, he's fooled by a parrot frog, whose call sounds eerily similar to the King of Skull Island. We immediately see how lonely Kong is and root for him to have his dream fulfilled. Kong's parents were killed by skullcrawlers when he was just an infant, forced to Skull Island following a war with Godzilla's species that the Scar King incited. And since Kong Skull Island, we've seen him looking up at the stars and just thinking about the wider world and how there must be more of his kind out there, and how he'd sit for extended periods of time staring at his reflection because that's the closest he's ever gotten to company. This plot thread continues in Godzilla vs. Kong, where Gia states there may be more down in the Hollow Earth, where he leaps into the portal in hopes that one day he might encounter more of his kind to be with his family. Well, after 3 years of exploration, he discovers a cavern that takes him to a new, uncharted region of the Hollow Earth. And there, he encounters a young member of his species, Zuko, who at first is nervous to approach, but then, before their hands meet, he bites Kong and alerts his group to ambush him. But he fights them off and forces Zuko to guide him to their home to meet up with the rest of his kind. In the dark, lava-filled caverns of the Hollow Earth, Kong finds that his species have been forced into slavery, mining for resources, moving mountain-sized block by mountain-sized block. It's a horrifying sight for Kong, who can't fathom the pain they must be experiencing. He helps one of the injured souls up before he's met face to face with a guard that screams in his face before Kong delivers this satisfying punch, which alerts the ruler of this land, the Scar King. Older and meaner than Kong, Scar watches over the land, inciting fear through pain and torture. He lands in front of Kong and mocks him, kicking Zuko's guardian into the lava, torching him alive, which is all Kong needs to see to challenge him to battle to try and free his people. Scar quickly gains the upper hand, however, with his deadly bone whip fashioned from the spine of some gigantic titan. But when Kong finds the strength to overpower him, Scar pulls out his Frost Titan, Shimo. Chained up, Scar uses a crystal that's telepathically linked to Shimo to force her to attack Kong with her Ice Blast. And after receiving life-threatening injuries, is forced to flee the scene. He returns with Zuko to Gia and tells her that he lost home. A sad development following the upbeat ending of Godzilla vs. Kong, where he says he found home. The mission is instantly clear. Kong must free his people from the tyrannical ruler. It echoes the story of Moses in the Book of Exodus, in which he frees his people from slavery and onto a brighter future. The connection is made even stronger when Kong and Zuko seemingly recreate the creation of Adam, which is reflecting how Kong is aiming to create a new society in his own image, one without fear or hate. It even has overtones of the Shakespeare play Hamlet, where the prince is exiled by the land by a jealous and despotic king, before needing to muster the courage to return and take the crown back to free his people. But to free them, he requires the help of Godzilla, to really stand toe-to-toe against Shimo and Scar. So he heads to Cairo and screams into the sky to alert Godzilla of his presence, and after fighting with tooth and claw and nearly losing his life, is saved by Mothra, who tells Godzilla that the Hollow Earth needs his help. So Godzilla, Kong, and Mothra engage in a brutal conflict against the Scar King, Shimo, and his Titan ape army. They go back and forth, helping one another to take down the ape soldiers one by one, until their fight makes its way to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The factions are evenly matched until Zuko uses Kong's axe to destroy the crystal that controls Shimo. No longer under the command of Scar, Shimo takes her sweet revenge on him, freezing Scar solid, and a amped-up Kong leaps into the air before smashing him into the ground, shattering him into thousands of pieces. And Kong lets out a victory roar, finally ridding the world of the evil Titan. Shimo, now free from the abusive clutches of Scar King, is guided back to the Hollow Earth by Kong. When he arrives to the lair where all the slaves were kept, left awaiting their ruthless leader's return, but they only see Kong left standing, with the little one, Zuko, and the first Titan they were meant to fear. Except they're here to spread peace and guide them into a better future, leaving the hatred and pain in the past, and they all cheer knowing that the worst years are behind them. As for Godzilla, he returns to the Roman Colosseum to rest until needed again, and it was recently revealed in the novelization that the reason he sleeps here is because it reminds him of the old temples that he used to be worshipped in, obviously before we blew it up, which is just so sad it makes me want to cry. It's an extremely pungent ending that feels really good for Kong since happy endings aren't normally his thing. Here he gets to be a leader alongside other members of his kind after being alone for so long. Longing to meet the hands of those just like him, he's finally found home. This isn't a theme only found in Kong's side of the story too, since Gia spends the entire film battling with herself and who she believes she is. She feels lost, out of place in the Western world, and when she's welcomed by the Hollow Earth Iwis, she feels at home, accepted by her people. But she understands that her true home is with family, her mother Eileen Andrews. It's an extremely touching part of the story that I know some people in my audience were tearing up to. There's a theme reflecting the loss some people feel when taken from their culture. They feel a part of them is missing, and how finding it and reintroducing yourself to a lost part of your history helps you feel whole again. That's why Gia and Kong are the beating heart of the story that gives this film a soul. The Scar King kept the Kongs in chains for so long, being abused, tortured, assaulted, and so much more horrible things for thousands of years. He represents the very worst of humanity, our past and present, a look into the very darkest of history, and personifies it. It takes for a good individual with a good heart and kind soul to truly lead them to a better, hopeful future. It does feel like an epic story of biblical proportions, a tale that was passed down by generations about the Kong that became king and freed his kind from oppression. It's a great ending with themes that I feel like a lot of critics aren't even bothering to consider. It's actually quite meaningful when you just sit and look below the surface of the awesome monster battles. And I know that's hard because there's a lot of awesome dumb monster battles. But at its core, Godzilla Kong: The New Empire is a special film that I believe has left a meaningful impression on the franchise on its 70th anniversary. But what did you think about the ending to Godzilla Kong: The New Empire? What do you think could happen in the follow-up? Let us know in the comment section down below, and be sure to subscribe and stomp the notification button to become a resident of DangerVille today. I've been Alistair, and we'll see you residents in the next one.